Whenever people talk about Rockstar, they think of their golden boy franchises like Grand Theft Auto, Max Payne, and Red Dead. However, one of the most underrated and unknown games of Rockstar was released all the way back in 2005. Pretty sure everything was still black and white during that time. The game that caused so much controversy about violence in video games and how it corrupts the youth. Today, I'm going to be talking about the legendary Bully. Everything started back in 2003 when it was rumored that Rockstar was making a new game. A game in which the player takes control of a bully and acts as an anti-hero. But that was basically all that was known. Rockstar then announced the game in May of 2005 for the PS2 and original Xbox. 2005 was a stacked year for all video games, with absolute gems like Resident Evil 4, God of War, GTA San Andreas, Guitar Hero, and many more. No wonder this game was overshadowed and forgotten by everyone. On the 17th of October 2006, Bully, also known as Canis Canem Edit in the PAL region, was released on the PS2. Strangely, it wasn't released on the original Xbox, even though plenty of promotional material promised it would be. People speculate that the development of it moved to the Xbox 360 since the original Xbox was doing very poorly in all aspects. The Xbox 360, Wii, and PC versions were released on the 4th of March 2008, more than a whole year after the initial release. Granted, it was a quote-unquote remastered version. It wasn't all that remastered, as it just had some updated textures and features. The quote-unquote remastered version of the game created way more issues than the original game ever had. Each console had many problems of its own. For example, on the Xbox 360, the game seemed to have a tendency to crash every hour or so. This happened to me more than half a dozen times while I was recording gameplay for this video. Mixed with very bad frame rate dips, the whole experience could have been better. I'm not even mentioning the issues that the PC and Wii versions had, like crashes, softlocks, rendering issues, and many more. Later on, Rockstar sent out patches and updates that tried to fix the issues, but it only addressed a small portion of them. The only saving grace of the performance was the community-made patches on PC. If you were on console, you were screwed. The game centers around a 15-year-old kid named Jimmy Hopkins. He was dropped off at the prestigious Bulworth Academy in Bulworth. It's a private boarding school that houses all the country's hooligans with the main idea of fixing them and reinstating them into society. It doesn't take long for Jimmy to realize that Bulworth Academy is a totally corrupt place where the students rule everything. Cause what could go wrong with collecting and putting the whole country's worst kids in a single place? Jimmy befriends a guy named Gary Smith and Petey. There is something very clearly wrong with Gary, as he acts like a total dictator, wanting to rule over the whole school. We are then introduced to the various gangs and members of the school, which play a very prominent role in the game. There are the bullies, nerds, jocks, greasers, and preppies. Each is unique in their own style, like the way they dress, weapons they use, how they fight, and many more things. For example, the preppies are the rich, snobby kids that talk all funny. However, a part of their territory is the downtown boxing gym. This results in all of them having more HP than any other enemy and actually having skills at hand-to-hand combat, being able to duck and weave with every punch. In contrast, the nerds are complete potatoes without their weapons. They don't do any hand combat, but resort to weapons like slingshots and potato launchers. Each click is unique and is made to represent the classic stereotypes people are used to. The story continues with Jimmy working together with each click, building alliances and getting their trust by helping them do jobs and missions. Near the end, Jimmy finally unites all the cliques under his rule, at last restoring peace to Bulworth. Or so we think. Remember how I mentioned that freak dictator Gary? Well yeah, it turns out that Gary is kind of jealous of Jimmy's power and has spread fake news to everyone about how he is trying to sabotage each clique. He even manipulated the dean, Mr. Crabblesnitch, into expelling Jimmy by feeding him lies. He also promised all the gangs fair and equal power divided between them. Jimmy decides to get revenge by beating each gang leader to a pulp and by going after Gary. Jimmy absolutely washes Gary's ass and ends up in the dean's office. Like a true Disney movie where everything ends well, Gary gets expelled, Jimmy is brought back into the school, and his best friend Petey gets appointed as head boy. I'm leaving out a large portion of the story and missions, as many of them are very repetitive and sometimes straight up boring. The story in this game is genuinely interesting and fun. I like the idea of doing jobs and improving your status with certain cliques so that they help you in other things. My only genuine complaint with the story is with Gary. Gary is introduced in the first act and is clearly made out to be a villain and someone whom Jimmy should not trust. We slowly start to unravel him as a person and his intentions until he just fucking disappears. He's legit gone for like 90% of the game until he just reappears in the final act where he sabotages Jimmy. They definitely should have added and shown more of him if he is supposed to be the main supervillain. The gameplay follows the standard GTA formula of being a third-person, open-world game where the player goes around completing different missions. While all of this is happening, Jimmy can attend classes, which is a cool new feature. As in regular school, you have 2 time periods throughout the day where you attend classes and play minigames to complete them. These minigames are all fairly easy and don't take more than 5 minutes to complete. However, they slowly increase in difficulty until you finish and complete all 5 lessons for a class. They match the class you're working in, for example, playing Scrabble games in English and dissecting different animals in science class. At the beginning of the game, I thought these missions were like main missions, where you would be punished for not completing them, but it turns out that they're completely optional. The reward for these missions vary a lot in each class. For example, you can get different outfits, new weapons, and upgrades for weapons. There are some cooler rewards like learning to apologize to different prefects, adults, and even the police after completing certain English lessons. There is an incentive to complete these missions, as they give rewards that you will use for the rest of your playthrough. One complaint I have about the main missions is that there are absolutely no checkpoints. So every time you mess up because of a stupid mistake or just the game straight up not working, you will be punished by reloading from your last manual save. I was almost put into a psych ward while trying to complete really annoying missions where I just kept failing over and over again. Like they could have added something. Aside from the main missions and class lessons, there are a bunch of other missions you can do. There are side missions, which are just like main missions and have the same characters, but just don't focus on the story. They're usually pointless and pretty boring, but some of them are actually fun. There are also errands you can do. Errands, unlike these actual missions, are not really missions. While you're exploring either the school or Bulworth itself, random people can come up to you and ask you to do a job. These jobs are usually fairly easy and take up less than 5 minutes. They can range from pickpocketing 3 lockers to delivering food to 3 customers or even finding a guy's 6 crabs that are floating in the lake. Yeah, It might sound like I'm joking, but that's an actual mission. These errands pay really good money for the amount of effort you have to put in. Sometimes they give more money than the actual real missions. To supply you with endless fun and activities, Jimmy is allowed to leave the school premises during the second act. This opens up a whole new map with many new areas and possibilities for fun. You now get access to things like bikes and mini kart races, stores, a whole ass carnival with many different party games and many other cool things. During this time, you can actually spend your hard-earned money to buy new drip, flowers, chocolates for girls, and a bunch of other pointless shit. The complaint that I have with this money is that there is way too much money and way too little things to spend it on. By the end of the game, I had more than $700 saved up, even though I wasn't being frugal at all with buying clothes and other pointless shit. They should have added more stores or just things you could spend your money on. To explore this huge map, you have a whole arsenal to pick from. The thing you're going to use the most is the skateboard, since it fits into your inventory and you can access it whenever you want. It's a really neat feature since it speeds up the travel in the game and does not waste any time. The only thing I don't like with the skateboard is its physics. When you're riding the skateboard, it feels like the smallest movement you do will force Jimmy to catapult to the side. There are other transport methods like bikes and mopeds, but I use them very rarely since you have to go out of your way to find them and to use them. I appreciate how in all of Rockstar's games there are a multitude of ways to explore the city and map. A huge part of Bully is the combat. Since you are a bully, you have the ability to beat the absolute shit out of anyone you want. Surprisingly, there is a pretty in-depth combat system. For starters, you can grapple anyone. From this situation, you have many options, like beating them with either a light attack or a strong attack, or maybe even tossing them to the ground. From the ground, you can do the same thing, hit them with combos of light attacks or strong attacks. There isn't much counterplay with the grappling thing, however, you can fight people without grappling them. You can simply square up like Mike Tyson and start dodging and weaving. You can block, counter, or do some other moves to beat your opponent. It's pretty fun using this combat system, as it's not just pressing two buttons one after the another, but there is an actual strategy that you have to learn to get good. There is a multitude of different moves and combos you can use. To unlock and learn these, however, you must either attend and pass gym classes or go to your friendly neighborhood alcoholic war veteran bum who teaches you how to fight in exchange for radio transmitters. Again, I'm not joking, this is a real thing you can do. You can bring him radio transmitters that you find in the city to be taught new fighting combos and moves. A big part of the charm of Bully is its environment and atmosphere. It's set in a very unique place and not some generic city with no personality. The setting of the school is also very interesting. The whole style of the school and slightly even the city is very British. This is cause the game supposedly takes place in New England region of the United States, more specifically Connecticut. Bulworth is made up of 4 different districts. There is the Bulworth Town, the town's commercial borough, Old Bulworth Vale, a suburb area where the town's mansions, beach, and carnival are located, New Coventry, which is a run-down part of the city that looks like a level straight from Manhunt, with its almost abandoned-like grey housing buildings. Lastly, there is the Blue Skies Industrial Park, an industrial borough consisting of factories, industrial buildings, the town's docks, and a trailer park. Each district is unique from each other with its buildings, citizens, and overall mood. One cool thing about the environment is how much attention to detail and depth it has. During the game, the seasons change, which in turn makes the environment around you change. This isn't the cool thing as many games have that, but the small details like the NPCs changing clothes and matching them to the environment. During wintertime, everyone wears jackets, hats and gloves, but the second it turns to fall, everyone changes clothes. Their dialogues also are based off the weather, since they often complain about how cold or warm it is. I think my favorite part of this game is the soundtrack. It's truly one of the best, not only of Rockstar, but of all time. The whole soundtrack, consisting of 26 straight bangers, was made by Sean Lee. All the songs fit perfectly with the British-esque theme, but are all unique and refreshing in their own way. There are so many songs for all the different situations, like a calm tune when you're just meandering around the city, or a more intense beat when you're getting chased by someone. It's one of the most memorable parts of the whole game. The characters also add a lot to the personality of the game. The characters are all very unique and cartoony. I have to keep referencing GTA, as Bully is considered by most people just to be GTA without guns. However, I truly think that it's more than that. Although I have heard that most people who bought and played this game as a kid did it just cause their parents wouldn't let them get any of the GTA games. The characters in GTA games are all very exaggerated parodies of real people or certain stereotypes. Take Little Jacob in GTA 4 and how he's the most stereotypical Jamaican any media has ever seen, weed smoking and talking like he was about to fall asleep.
Yeah, fuck you, fucking reggae idiot bitch!
You want blood clot cause I don't even bomber clot rate you know.
Stop speaking that gibberish!
The same is seen in Bully. Not Little Jacob, but all the stereotypes and exaggerations. A very good example of this is the preppies. They constantly mention how much incest is in their family, but try to play it off and make it seem normal. They are also aware that it would be nothing if not for all of their daddy's money. Any dialogue from any character is very interesting to watch, as it's actually funny and entertaining. I find overly serious games to be way more boring than more relaxed games that poke fun at themselves. We cannot talk about Bully and not talk about its controversial history. Bully's title and gameplay were the subject of controversy among many parents and educators who noted the adult content in previous Rockstar games. Their logic was that if previous games were violent, this one had to be too. Many activist groups led protests against the game due to the glorification of school bullying and violence. Basically the same treatment as any and all Rockstar games experienced during the early 2000s. Many countries decided to give strict age ratings so not everyone could play. Brazil just straight up banned the whole game cause it would quote unquote create harm for kids and teenagers. Yeah, throwing stink bombs and giving wedgies to people is just so harmful to the youth. Jack Thompson, a famous anti-violent video game activist, was very much against this game. He filed multiple lawsuits to get the game off the shelves in Florida and many other states. The funny part is that 2Take Interactive brought a copy of the game to court so everyone could see what the game is really like. The judge found no issue with the game and allowed its distribution across the US. I found this hilarious, as many people even found the game to be educational, saying, "Press coverage described the game as free-form, focusing on building a social network and learning new skills from the classes, with strictly enforced punishments for serial misbehavior." Aside the controversy, the game was met with very positive reviews. Critics praised the game's storyline, soundtrack, and solid gameplay, while all complained about the performance issues. The game won many awards, like GameSpot's award for Best Original Music and being in the Gaming Target's 52 games will still be playing from the 2006 selection list. Bully is one of the coolest and most unique Rockstar games I've ever played. It kept me engaged the whole way through with its funny gameplay, unique environment, and amazing soundtrack. If you haven't ever heard of Bully prior to this video, or have just kept this game in your backlog for some time, I really suggest you and urge you to get yourself a copy and to enjoy this masterpiece. Thank you for watching today's video.